Welcome to the PinkpillRx podcast, hosted by Katie and Jay Fillmore, where we navigate complex and thought-provoking topics surrounding women with a focus on education. For shorter form content, follow us on TikTok, Instagram, or YouTube at Caters88 or PinkpillRx.
That's Kators 88.
If you enjoy this podcast, please give us a follow and maybe a nice review.
So the TikTok ban is still on the horizon. I think April 5th is when it's supposed to go away, supposedly. I haven't heard much about it. But as a reminder to our listeners, we are also on YouTube and Instagram. So you can find us there. And of course, here on our podcast too. Let me tell you guys, I have been so sick this week, that we're sitting down and we're recording this. It's like the 11th hour to record this, first of all. But second of all, this is probably going to be the most time that I have spent with you in the last week because I have been so sick.
It's been brutal for you this week.
Well, are you well? Because it's been brutal for you.
I mean, I am health-wise and I'm physically well, but mentally and emotionally, not as much because, I've been doing all the kids' stuff since you've been sick.
I am curious. I want to get some updates because we haven't caught up. So you went to an event this morning. Mm-hmm. Can you tell me a little bit about it? And can you tell me how it went?
Yeah. Yes, I can.
This is real time. I don't know anything.
So I took them to a place where it's kind of like a kid's, what do you call it, a kid's museum or a kid's play? What is it? It's through the Park District.
Yeah, it's like a kind of like a museum.
Like there's interactive stuff, like kids can go on a mock airplane and see what it's like to pilot or be a passenger. There used to be a castle they just got rid of. I think they're putting a treehouse in instead. There's like a dinosaur spot, a music spot. There's a restaurant. I mean, a train. You can go grocery shopping. It's all kinds of stuff for kids to play with. And there is an event there this morning through a local nonprofit, and it was called Emotion Explorers, where you go and you do a scavenger hunt, and it relates to how we identify and express emotions. But you get to play with everything while you're there. So I got them in the car and brought them over there, 3 out of our 4. So we got ages 10, 5, and 2.5. And we get there, and they give you a scavenger hunt sheet where there's like different signs in different places that have a kid demonstrating it like visually in emotion. It's a cartoon. And then a letter, and then on your scavenger hunt form, wherever that kid is, above it, there's a blank, and you fill in that letter, and eventually it spells out a secret code because there's a bunch of different kids' faces and different letters throughout the building. And we did a couple of those, and then my 5-year-old just said, yeah, I don't want to do that. And the 2.5-year-old was just, in her own world because there's a bunch of stuff to play with. 10-year-old took it seriously. She was going to get this code. And so sometimes she went off on her own just to find the other faces and stuff. But we played a lot of different places. Our 2.5-year-old charmed the pants off of everybody. They gave us lunch, which the 5-year-old liked half of it. 10-year-old liked less than half of it. And the 2.5-year-old was just happy as a clam.
Do you feel like it was impactful at all, or do you feel like anything was learned?
No, I feel like they just had a lot of fun. And to me, I was there, and I was like, you know what? If they don't do this scavenger hunt part, what's good for their emotions is to have fun and have fun with their sisters and have fun with their dads. So I just focused on that. So, but 5-year-old, yeah, I don't want to do that.
Yeah, that sounds about right. That's
Dad,
on par for her and her emotions.
Yeah.
I think I'm good, thanks. Don't want to be feeling anything.
Yeah. And she's probably the top kid I wanted to go there. No, Dad, I don't want to do that.
But, I think that's admirable. I think that you saw that event and you thought that there are members of our family that could benefit from that event, and you made it happen.
Yeah, it's been a big struggle of mine to identify my own emotions and to actually express them and emote them. And so any opportunity I see with our kids to help them with that, I want to jump on it. I almost didn't go, though. I almost chickened out because I was like, I don't know what this is going to be like. This could be a disaster.
This is very brave.
Thank you. It felt brave.
You did a great job.
Thank you.
Yeah. Did you feel that? Did it feel brave? Did you get to feel that and experience
that
and embody that emotion?
Yep.
Because it was brave.
Yeah, I felt brave. I was a big brave dog.
Should we tell them about how we're watching Little House on the Prairie? We go through phases where we watch things like The Price is Right, for example.
That was a good one.
Or Golden Girls. We're currently in a Golden Girls phase.
Gosh,
but concurrent with the Golden Girls phase, guys, is the Little House on the Prairie phase. And we're really digging Little House on the Prairie right now. And we are watching it like every night.
Multiple episodes. Well, the first episode, I feel like it took a year.
A cinematic experience. It is like a whole, like every episode's like a whole freaking movie.
Yeah. And when you watch, like we each watched it as a kid. But watching it as an adult, and now we're not identifying with Laura Ingalls, we're identifying with Ma and Pa.
Oh my God.
And the amount of secondhand stress that we have watching this because we're identifying with the adults instead of the kids, it's a whole different show.
It is a different show.
Watching it as an adult.
If you were at all into Little House on the Prairie, you have to rewatch it.
You gotta.
As an adult and see the stress that these people have gone through.
I mean, just watch the pilot.
The pilot.
Literally just the pilot. And that's it. And then let us know what you think.
We kept having to see, are we watching a movie or are we watching a series?
Yeah. Of things that occurred.
So much happened. And then they had to leave.
What? Cut that out. We got to cut that out.
Okay.
Spoiler.
Sorry that I'm spoiling something from
the 70s.
The 70s. I don't even know when it was recorded. Pa, Ma.
And then our 5-year-old reminds us a little bit of Laura, and you just got her.
I got her to start saying Pa.
To me, and she's got her head wrapped for bedtime now. And she said, Pa. And I said, I said, what is it? And I said, can I call you Half Pint? And she said, yeah. And so when she said Pa, I said, what is it, Half Pint? Oh, man.
Yeah, so that's what we do with our free time.
Yeah. Yeah, we're serial hobbyists and serial show consumers, and that's just part of our ADHD too. Like right now I got a Nintendo Switch, and I've been playing Mario Party from Nintendo 64, and that's my current thing.
You're really into Golden Girls, though.
Golden Girls, that's a different episode. I could talk about Golden Girls for a while, and maybe we should do that next week.
Okay, sounds good.
Because I could monologue about Golden Girls and how amazing that show is.
Well,
I never knew. I had no idea. I thought, I used to see that when I was a kid, like previews on TV or something, but that show that's a monument. That's a groundbreaking show. That show's incredible.
Thank you for joining us as usual.
And thank you for being a friend.
Do.
And you're back again.
So I thought about several things that we could talk about today because I've not had a ton of energy this week to do my normal research and to unpack the normal stuff that we unpack. We've been pretty light on social media too, like as far as posting goes, because I've been so sick. I thought we could talk about something that we are very familiar with.
Great.
In our household.
Great. Mm-hmm.
Called ADHD, baby.
Oh, yeah.
I'm officially diagnosed.
Mm-hmm.
You're officially diagnosed.
Mm-hmm.
We have one daughter that's officially diagnosed.
Mm-hmm.
We have 3 that are highly sus.
Yeah. One in particular, I'm not suspicious. I know. I don't need a piece of paper.
Well, that brings up a great point of self-diagnosis.
Oh, yeah.
Because there's a lot of people that have not been officially diagnosed with something, but really strongly identify with the ADHD characteristics and self-identify. And in these neurodivergent spaces like ADHD, autism, OCD, like self-diagnosis is pretty legit. The thing that is interesting about ADHD specifically and autism, but I'm going to talk about ADHD here for a moment, is that boys are diagnosed with ADHD at a rate nearly 3 to 4 times higher than girls are during childhood.
You know, is that because boys are overdiagnosed or because girls are underdiagnosed?
This is the case despite evidence suggesting similar prevalence rates in adulthood.
Between men and women?
Yes.
Okay. So underdiagnosis then?
Underdiagnosis of girls is what we're talking about here.
Yeah. What age were you diagnosed?
With ADHD?
Yeah.
32. Late diagnosis. Women are most often diagnosed with ADHD in their 30s when the demands of life have become too much. Same thing when it comes with autism. A lot of women are diagnosed in their 30s when the demand of life becomes too much. But what's interesting is this disparity between boys and girls is partly due to the presentation of symptoms.
Okay.
Which girls present with symptoms that are less likely to be disruptive than boys. Boys present with hyperactive symptoms quite often that are externalized hyperactivity. So it's impulsiveness and it's
running around and
running
jumping off the
around and
walls.
being, the classic ADHD that you would maybe think about, right? Versus with women, that is more, it more manifests with the inattentive type or mixed presentation. And the hyperactivity, if it's present, is often in the head and it's overthinking. So you have like forgetfulness, difficulty focusing, disorganization, procrastination. Women experience heightened emotional dysregulation, including mood swings, hypersensitivity to criticism, low frustration tolerance. That hyperactivity in women, like I said, most likely is going to be evident by racing thoughts or overthinking or intrusive thoughts or like obsessive behaviors. Women often are really good elaborate compensatory strategies. So like they're really good at masking is a term that is often used in the ADHD community, where we have adapted to make things work, even though we're white knuckling it.
You mentioned something that maybe not everybody is familiar with. Could you just say a little bit about combined type versus hyperactive versus inattentive?
Yeah, so you have 3 different types of ADHD. You have hyperactive kind, which is what you think of when you think of like classic little boy with ADHD. You know, they're impulsive,
Little tornadoes,
have lots of energy, flitting and flighting from one thing to another thing, that kind of thing. Versus the inattentive type is more of the daydreaming, spacing out, forgetfulness kind of thing. And then you can have combined type where you have a little bit of the hyperactivity and a little bit of the inattentiveness, and it mixes into the combined type. So you have symptoms of both essentially. Studies have shown that women are twice as likely as men to receive an initial misdiagnosis of a mood disorder before being correctly diagnosed with ADHD.
Okay, hold on a second. So mood disorder, give me a few examples under that category, and then I have something to say or ask about that.
Borderline personality disorder, bipolar disorder.
For ADHD?
Yeah.
Those?
Oh, yeah.
I was thinking like anxiety.
No, those are the most popular
depression.
ones. No, yes, anxiety and depression, yes, but they will get a mood disorder. No, you are correct that they will get diagnosed with anxiety and depression often, yes. But usually it escalates beyond that, because there's other things going on here besides just anxiety or just depression.
Because
and
that
so then they
diagnosis-
end up getting basically this catch-all diagnosis of bipolar or borderline personality disorder.
That is crazy, because those are a totally different category of what's going on in your brain. And medication classes and
the treatment for all of those
stigma.
things. Yeah, there's stigma too.
So let's say you're an adult woman and you get this diagnosis, and then I don't know much about the medications for bipolar or if there is one for borderline, but maybe you could speak to that in a second. But if you get diagnosed with generalized anxiety disorder or depression, then you're going on an SSRI and SNRI. It takes you 6 to 8 weeks just to figure out it's doing nothing for you.
Yeah, that was my...
And then another medication to try. And then another medication. Maybe go on atypical medication. And then all of this, if you could have just gotten an Adderall, instant release, taken it one time that day, you would see, oh my gosh, this changed my life.
Correct. I mean, that's what my story was, basically. I mean, I've been seeking help since I was 19. I didn't get diagnosed till I was 32. It was always anxiety, depression.
Gosh.
Anxiety, depression.
What a burden
anxiety,
to bear.
depression. Well, yeah, and then you're not getting better. And you're like, what the heck? Now you're treatment-resistant depression. So there's an estimate that between 50 to 75% of women that actually have ADHD, like ones that actually have it, are undiagnosed with it, primarily due to their less disruptive symptoms, like the fact that it's daydreaming, disorganization, more of an inattentive site, and that societal expectations of women are so high for behavior that women naturally mask more and more effectively and like deeper than men have to, because they practice doing it in their daily life with other things.
You know what? you were diagnosed at 32. It was so easy to get one of our kids diagnosed because you as the genetic parent was already diagnosed.
Right.
So if someone is listening who suspects they could have ADHD, it might be a good idea to try and get a formal diagnosis. So if you, in particular, have a daughter that you suspect could have it, it'd be much easier to get the right diagnosis because they're going to look genetically at you because there's a genetic component to it.
Women are diagnosed with ADHD on average 5 years later than men, often only after symptoms have become so severe that they are severely impacting their daily functioning.
It doesn't have to be that way. That's part of the sadness.
Studies estimate that up to 1 in 6 people with bipolar disorder also have ADHD. And that emotional dysregulation is linked to ADHD and is often mistaken for bipolar disorder symptoms.
Whoa.
Now, I'm not saying that 1 in 6 people have bipolar, but really only have ADHD.
Yeah.
But I'm saying that 1 in 6 people who have bipolar also have symptoms that would qualify for an ADHD diagnosis.
So I don't know what.
So what is it, the chicken or the egg, that is causing this emotional dysregulation?
Right, and if you have bipolar and I'm assuming that's one you need to be medicated for. What do you take? Lithium?
Yes.
Okay, you're on
often.
that?
Yes.
So,
there's other medication.
Yeah.
Yes.
As an example, though, so you're being treated for bipolar disorder. You're taking lithium, but it's not resolving all the stuff going on with you. And your ADHD is then untreated when you really need to be treated. You need to take a second medication for that too then.
Yeah. What is interesting is that I feel like, identified more with the symptoms with ADHD that women experienced.
Absolutely. Yep. Yeah.
Because you're diagnosed too.
Yeah.
But it was interesting because on paper, initially, it didn't seem like that was what that was. But then when you read all of the symptoms of a woman, then all of a sudden you were like, wait a second, I have this. Or I have these symptoms. I need to talk to somebody.
Yeah. Yeah. And you tried to convince me for like a year. You thought I had ADHD, and I kept telling you, no, I think you're wrong. Look, I get stuff done. And you're like, yeah, but you have like 14 alarms set in your phone to get stuff done.
Yeah, you had highly adapted.
Yeah. Yeah, for decades. It just built systems around my life to, externally support what I internally couldn't, basically. But yeah, I identified a lot more with the symptoms of an ADHD woman than ADHD man, because I was never like running around crazy, but my mind is always going all the time.
Well, then you go in and transition into the autism diagnosis, right, for women, which is even more difficult to get as a woman, is an autism diagnosis. Similar reasons in comparison to men is they mask high, they present differently. So nearly 80% of women with autism, 80%, are misdiagnosed with conditions like borderline personality disorder, anxiety, depression, bipolar disorder, or eating disorders.
How damaging. How damaging. Because then not just that you're not getting the support you need, but you're taking things you don't need to take if you're medicated.
And the therapy for some of this stuff is very different. Like even if you were to go seek mental health help, like it's very different than the mental health help you need as an autistic woman.
Mm-hmm. And aren't they classified differently? Isn't autism a neurotype?
Yes.
And what's anxiety or depression considered?
I believe it's considered a mood disorder.
Mood disorder. What's ADHD considered? Is that a neurotype or a mood disorder?
No, it's a neurotype. It's something you're born like the structures of your brain are literally different.
So the physical structure of your brain is different, not just the dopamine's different?
I believe so.
And you're treating a hardware problem with a software solution.
Women, if compared to men, when it comes to autism, women are looking at about an 8-year difference compared to their male counterpart when it comes to diagnosis. So that their male counterpart that have done all the things that they have done, including evaluations and all this stuff, that the male counterpart will get a diagnosis 8 years prior.
Dude, that is so unjust. And it just, it's a reminder of stuff we talked about before. We're just like when you talked about, all these medications are tested on basically a white 20-something-year-old man, right? So it's white, young male-centric healthcare.
You are so spot on with that, because part of the reason is that there is gender bias. There's male-centric studies. There's so much autism research that has just basically been done on men and boys and males. There's a huge research gap when it comes to females in all of this. So the diagnostic criteria are historically based on these male-centric studies. There's this one tool called the ADOS that can be used as a diagnostic tool or screening tool. And they realized that when they used this screening tool, this particular screening tool, the ratio of male to female participants ended up being around 8 men diagnosed to 1 female diagnosed. If they did not use that scale, the ratios ranged from 2 boys to every 1 girl to 1 to 1.
So this scale sounds like it's problematic.
It's one of the male-centric scales that is used that we see has a high error rate when it comes to diagnosing women. And the thing is so many people, even in your family, are usually missing this too, like growing up with your extended family and stuff, because a lot of times it runs in families. So a lot of times they have it and they think it's normal, first of all. That's a big thing. What are you talking about? Everybody does this.
Yeah, everybody has a crayon collection.
Everybody does
whatever.
all this stuff, you know? Or like, it's like, oh, she was just a difficult baby or a difficult child or just very particular. You don't, a lot of parents aren't really like thinking about this. So what I would like to share, because I think it's hilarious, is I want to share. So when you get evaluated for autism, you have family interviews that have to be done a lot of times. Not all the time. It depends on your evaluator. But the one that I got evaluated with had me do a parental interview where I was not involved. She did the interview. But I got access to it afterwards. And I did not know. I didn't really prep my mom on this. I just said, these are some questions that are going to be asked probably. If you could just answer them to your best ability, to the best of your ability, I'd appreciate it, because I didn't want to influence her in any way. So the psychiatrist asked, a bunch of questions of her. And this is what the psychiatrist's summary was of my interview with my mom. Okay. Now this is coming. I just got diagnosed with actual autism. I have been identified as self-diagnosed for years now, but I went ahead and got my official diagnosis back in February because I wanted to have it. And so this is my first exposure to like how my mom would have evaluated my childhood. Miss Fillmore's mother described her as very complex, adventure-loving, and healing. She said she was very difficult when she was young. As a baby, she did not sleep for 8 months and had a lot of separation anxiety. Her mother created a dummy mom using pillows and blankets on the floor of a room and changed the baby monitors around so she could think her mother was lying beside her. A pediatrician told them to try tough love, which was really hard. Miss Fillmore was particular about what she liked and did not like. She decided she did not like her wallpaper when she was 4 years old, and she was also very particular about her clothing. Her mother had to cut the tags off of all her clothing, and when she got older, they had difficulties finding her a bra that felt comfortable to her. She was also particular about food. For example, she wanted her eggs cooked a very specific way. She is very affected by food disappointment. If she has a favorite food item, it is not to be altered. Miss Fillmore had trouble separating at church and kindergarten. She tried joining a brownie troop, and it was too difficult for her to separate from her mother. After she got situated in social situations, she seemed to do okay. Once she was pulled out to homeschool, she was pretty sociable in her homeschool co-op. They would need to find ways to incorporate her social life, though. She got along well with some of her cousins, and when she got older, she had a group of good girls. She does not like to be alone. She also has frequent meltdowns. Her mother started homeschooling her when she was 7, and her mother described it as a constant battle. Miss Fillmore's older brother was having difficulty in school, so they decided to homeschool the 2 of them. She remembered one journal entry about a year in where she was saying, "Praise God she didn't cry today, and neither did I," which was a landmark. She had a curriculum that had clowns on the pages, which was really difficult, and her mother had to frequently rewrite the problems or alter the pages to eliminate the clown graphics. Miss Fillmore has hypermobility and problems with her joints, which were noticeable when she was younger, too. She was excellent at anything she was interested in. She really struggled with cleanliness and organization.
Your car.
If there was an expectation on her, she would freeze. She might proclaim that she would clean her room, but if her mother told her to make sure she made her bed, she could not perform. She could perform for other people other than her mother in an extraordinary way. She did excellent in theater. She started working at her father's car dealership as a teenager and did really well with that. She did excellent at community college, which she started her sophomore year of high school. She loved to write stories. Her stories were so long that her mother could not keep up with reading them. Her stories were very emotional, and she often killed off the characters. She would tell her mother that the characters were too active in her brain, and she had to get rid of them. Miss Fillmore was very spiritually led and passionate about things. She started an organization called Orbit when she was 13 or 14, and she was very detail-oriented, put together a good mission statement and everything to help others. From a young age, she wanted to be a public speaker, and she would speak about this and could turn on the professionalism like a light switch. She's always good at supporting others. They consider her superpower to be helping come up with creative solutions to problems. She has always been attuned to others. She's extremely creative, and she helps support her family by coming up with ways to earn money. Currently, she's very professional at work and prides herself on her professionalism. The end. I just thought it's funny because there's things in there that scream autism. There's things in there that scream pathological demand avoidance, which is called PDA, which is a profile of autism, which you can look up in case you're curious. It's very interesting. But no one caught it. No one saw it because I was just a quirky kid.
Yeah, that's what they always called you.
They always called me just quirky kid.
Yeah, it was quirky Katie.
Yeah. And it ended up really deeply impacting me later in life. It wasn't so much when I was younger, but when I had to be an adult and do the adult things really, the wheels fell off. And
yeah. You know what else that, I don't know, testimonial by your mom screams? All of our kids.
Yeah, I know. They do sound like every one of my offspring.
There's the little something in there that each kid got. Some got more than others.
You're welcome.
But I'm like, oh, yep, there's 2 of them. There's 1. Oh, all 4 of them right there. Don't like your wallpaper in the clowns?
It still is really hard. I'm fighting a lot of like internalized ableism and not even like believing my own diagnoses sometimes. Do you ever wonder if you have ADHD really?
No. No, because the difference from when I'm medicated versus not, and all the amount of external coping stuff I did for so many years, like to trick myself into remembering things, it's unbelievable.
Yeah, the ADHD medication definitely helped me the most as far as all the medications go. But I think with my added autism diagnosis, it's still quite the struggle. I've been talking about it a little bit on social media, how I've been switching around on medications and stuff. But when I took ADHD medication for the first time, it was like the lights came on for the first time and
There's
things slowed down and I could think and I could do things that I hadn't been able to do in a really long time. And I remember just thinking that my every other thought wasn't, when do I get to go back to bed? That was like such a huge thing. There was so much room to think about other things because I wasn't thinking about how I just wanted to go back to bed.
Yeah.
I had such bad chronic fatigue.
You made a TikTok about it. Like it's on your TikTok account. First time you took it. You were cleaning shoes in the sink.
Yeah, and everyone gave me hate for that TikTok and said that
You shouldn't be taking that.
Shouldn't be taking that. And I'm like, no, like I've been meaning to wash these shoes for like years, guys.
Yeah.
Years.
It was wild to be a witness to it.
I remember you asking me if I was okay.
Yeah, I was just checking in because obviously you seem very different. I didn't know what was normal, what was not. And you were like, yeah, I'm fine. And I'm like, okay. And then just kind of watched it unfold. And I'm like, oh my God, this is... Okay, well, let's see tomorrow or the next day. And sure enough, it was similar. Not the shoes thing, but, the fatigue and the mental space was there. The lack of fatigue and the mental space was there.
Yeah.
When I first took ADHD medicine, I cried.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah. Because it was like if you're like a kid in a cafeteria at school and it's very noisy, but all of a sudden, like everyone kind of pauses or stops talking around the same time and like a hush comes over the room and you kind of look around like, what's going on? It was like that. I was driving. You were driving. And it kicked in and it was like my brain kind of, everything went quieter. And I was like, oh my gosh.
ADHD like medication helped so much with anxiety.
Yeah.
That's why I can see why it's so easy to get misdiagnosed with anxiety because it helped so much with my anxiety.
Yeah, because you weren't overthinking.
Yes.
And ruminating and stuff. Same with me. Okay, so let's say we have someone listening to the show, man or woman, but for the sake of like the statistics you referenced, let's say a woman listening to our show. So if you think you have ADHD, what do you do to get diagnosed? Like, how would you even start that process? Probably feels very daunting to do.
Well, first, I think that you need some self-validation. I would search ADHD symptoms in adult women.
Yeah, see if you see yourself there.
See if you see yourself there.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to also want to make sure that some of these symptoms were present at childhood.
Right.
Because this is not something you develop. This is something that you have.
It's a neurotype. So it's not like you develop, you know, generalized anxiety or a depressive disorder when you're in your 20s.
Right. So then my next recommendation would be locating a psychiatrist. I recommend a female. If you are female, I would definitely recommend a female psychiatrist. I would look into their reviews. There are websites out there. If you just like Google neurodivergent friendly psychiatrist or something like that, there are organizations like neurodivergent organizations that have scoped out some of these psychiatrists that you can kind of touch base with. So that's one way to do it. And the other thing would be just calling a psychiatry practice and saying that you want to talk to a female psychiatrist and be evaluated for ADHD. So a psychiatrist is going to be where it's going to be at, and they're going to help evaluate you and hopefully prescribe you medication.
And do you need a referral from your primary care doctor?
It depends on the state that you live in.
Okay.
And honestly, it can depend on practice to practice too, because
I didn't.
In Illinois, we don't technically need a referral, but my psych did want one.
Okay.
So,
yeah, and then obviously you want to check and make sure, you know, whatever insurance you have, that
right,
they're in network or whatever.
Right. So that's the first step, is just getting some self-validation, finding somebody who is neurodivergent affirming, if possible, psychiatrist.
And if you do go that route, and let's say you get a diagnosis, it doesn't mean you have to take medication for it. But if you want to try a medication, there are different routes you can go. There's stimulant medications and there's non-stimulant medications. Stimulant medications, you have things like Adderall, which could possibly have a negative reputation depending on how you were raised or what was talked about when you were a kid. But if you have ADHD, Adderall calms you. It doesn't make you like you're going to be up all night accomplishing, you know, your life's work.
That's why we joke and say that if you think you're ADHD and you take something for it, you'll know very quickly whether you have ADHD or not, because all of a sudden you'll be calm.
Yeah, it's more like a very diluted version of the movie Limitless.
And it's not calm like tired.
No, peaceful.
Although it can be calm like tired, I guess I could say. But it's not like, I'm always terrified of things that say that they will make me calm, because I do struggle so much with chronic fatigue that I'm like, I don't need to be calm.
Right. I need to be woken up.
I need to be awake.
Yeah.
But it's not sedative kind of calm.
And you might feel so calm and relaxed that you do feel tired because you can finally rest, because your mind's finally at rest. So it's like relief, and you can actually take a nap or something. But it's not, the medication won't make you sleepy, but it can make your brain stop moving all the time, which in itself can be relieving. And like maybe you want to lay down. And then, and there's medications that are not stimulants, and this is not medical advice.
No, it's not medical
advice. For the
advice.
record.
Sorry that this one was so short and it did not have a ton of that research content that I know you all love, but this was just to get an episode out there because I have been so sick and we have been so under the weather over here. Hopefully you guys can understand that this is kind of a fluke, and we will be back with better content, I feel like, on another day here.
And I hope that if you're listening, and maybe this doesn't apply to you specifically because you don't identify with, you know, ADHD or autism or OCD or something like that, but possibly you have a friend or a colleague or a family member that maybe does. And not to say you should be like, hey guys, I listened to this podcast, I want to tell you what I think, but maybe you feel a bit more equipped to support that person.
And, you know, if anybody ever confides in you that they think they have ADHD, you know, saying that everyone has a touch of ADHD is not helpful, or totally invalidating it because you don't see those typical boy behaviors also is not going to be helpful to somebody who's probably spent years and years and years being misdiagnosed and treated for things that they don't actually have, or treated for things that aren't even the main cause of the problem. Yeah,
I mean, when you say everybody has a touch of ADHD, well, I mean, everyone's attention spans are much shorter than a generation, 2 generations, 3 generations ago, because the way that media and on-demand media and social media have all changed our brains. I mean, you look at films from 30 years ago to now, and the camera shots are a lot longer than they are now. Now a camera shot might be 3 seconds, and you change to another shot, where they used to be a lot longer. So when you say everybody has a touch of ADHD, you're really talking about attention span. You're not talking about a neurotype, and you're not talking about the physical structure of the brain, because not everybody has a touch of the neurotype, or a touch of the dopamine problems, or a touch of the brain structure and brain wiring. But you might have a touch of shorter attention span because of what media has continuously done to our brains. I hope for those of you listening, something was intriguing or sparked a curiosity, or you felt affirmed or challenged. Stay educated. Take the pink pill. If you enjoyed this podcast, please give us a follow and maybe a nice review.